Good morning and welcome to Pretty Gets Gritty. So today we're going to be doing a Christmas bauble, and I'll just wait for a few of you to join along before I get too far in. So I've already prepared my MDF blank with some black gesso, and it's just a nice thin there, so nothing too thick or that's going to take too long to dry. Just wait for everybody to join just so I know that we have people and it's connected okay. So don't be afraid to ask questions as we go through. I'll try and give as much detail as possible with regards to supplies, and today I'm going to be using some of the stamps that are on Fiver Friday. So hopefully you can all hear me okay. And morning Tracy. Hi Thea. Did you just start? Yes, I've just started. Computer was a little weird this morning, so we will see how we go. Hopefully everything should be okay. One of those, don't touch it, it might break. So I'm going to start off with my bauble, and I'm going to pull out some pretty whipped mousse in sea glass. And I'm not going to go all over the top, I just literally want to pick out some areas before we start stamping. So as I said, don't be afraid to ask questions. I'm here to help. Going to use what's on that top bit actually. Let's get the bit off my fingers too. You know me, if I can put my finger in it. Morning Joyce. So hopefully you are either watching me on the Pretty Gets Gritty Facebook page. Brush is still a little bit damp. I might go for a bit of a drier brush. There we go. There we go. That's a bit more like it. So as I said, I'm not looking for perfect coverage, but what I am looking for is to keep it as smooth as possible, ready for our stamping. We're going to be building up lots of layers on top, so if you're thinking at this stage, oh my, it looks awfully rough and I don't like it, just keep going. I'm also going to apply a little bit to the top of our bauble too, even though I may come back and add some cord and things up to that section. It just saves having an awkward line where things join. So once you start to get to the end of the paint in your brush, you can just do a little bit of dry brushing around the outside, and that's going to pick up the raised sections of your gesso. I'm on Facebook on Pretty Gets Gritty and YouTube on my channel. Yet to figure it out how to push it out to everybody else's YouTube as well, but I'll get there eventually. So with that, I'm just going to pop that back on there. So with the mousses, there's lots of ways that you can apply them. You can go thicker and use them like a texture paste for a stencil, which we'll be doing in a bit. You can use them neat to paint like I have, or you can even water them down to use them as a watercolour, so don't be afraid to play. So the first stamp that we are going to be using is Cracked Up, and this is a really good background stamp where you just want a texture but you're not quite sure what. But also I find it really useful to mimic a road map. So if that's something you might want to do for a travel journal, it's a good idea to have a go with that one. Okay, so I'm just going to apply that to my stamp block, and it's going to be a little bit bigger than my block. I don't mind on this occasion. So stamp wise, what can we use? Well, we could use a hybrid, a pigment or a dye based ink, but where you're using your dye, it's not going to stick to your acrylics. So I think on this occasion I'm going to use a little bit of acrylic paint, and if I can find it, it says, let's use messy matte. So one messy matte paper, and I'm just going to pop a little bit of acrylic paint onto my mat. Now, if you have Lynette's little spray, you can use that one. I'm going to go a bit bigger. And you just want to get a fairly thin coat. And I'm going to take that over my stamp. Straight over the top. That one, just going to literally drop that onto the bauble and then give a bit of welly behind it. So the reason that we use the brow is that we're literally getting that top surface of our stamp rather than it getting into the nooks and crannies. But what I would say is do clean off your stamp pretty soon after you've done this. You can use a little nail brush if you need to, but do be gentle. Hi Mum! Okay, so I'm going to lift that up. Now if you want to do an all over pattern, I'm just going to rotate that round. A little bit more paint, not too much. Less is more when it comes to acrylic paint and stamping. And again we can go straight over the top. Okay, now we're going to line this up as close as possible, but it's never going to be exact. Let's go across there. Okay. So if you want to infill some areas where you think it's a bit darker, you can do that. But for this one, I'm going to take, let's get me a little damp brush, because the damp's actually going to do us a favour here. Just going to get this paint off my mat. I'm just going to brush it around this edge. So it's not going to be really obvious, but you're just kind of blending that edge so it has a little bit of a highlight. And you mainly want to go around the top because it's like going to suggest the light's going to be coming down from the top of this bauble. Now if you want to actually paint on a highlight at some point, you can do that too, but just for today I'm going to leave it as is. Now I'm going to cheat and just use a baby wipe just so that my paint doesn't set. Clean that up quickly off there and off our stamp. So if you water down the mousses slightly, very, very slightly, you could use that same technique, but you really only want like a drop of water. Okay, so I'm going to set that to one side to dry off. Let's clean off my brow quick in case we want that for anything else later on. I will go back and give these all a good clean after, so you can just use a little soapy water. Right. There we go. So, next, now that we've got our sort of background section done, I'm going to bring in my stencil and I'm going to line it up so that I'm picking out this kind of arch that we have just here. I'm going to place that up towards the top arch of my bauble. Now, the thing to remember from here is that we don't want to go too far up this stem of our bauble in case we decide to do something else, in which case the raised detail is going to get in our way. What is Fiver Friday? Okay, over on the Pretty Gets Gritty website, each Friday there's an offer that is either £5 off or £5 to purchase. That you can go on there, and each week it's something different. So this week it is the stamp that I just used, the cracked up. I've got Puddled Up and Bubble Hopper also in, so it's some of the original stamps that I've introduced a lot of you to. So I'm going to start off just by working out roughly where I'm going. So when we're applying with a brush, it's not going to be as deep. And it's just so I can see where I'm going on my stencil, because I don't want to go too far. So I think along that line there should be plenty. So this is where we get gooey. I'm going to load up my spatula and we are going to go straight down. So like that, and straight down. Straight down. And you'll see now what I say about marking out where you're going first, because once you get to this stage it can be a bit difficult to see what's underneath. If you have any bits where it doesn't quite fill the hole, then do go upwards as well, but for the most point you'll need to do it in just a downward pass. So a little bit more there. Now I'm going to let this dry for a bit. Any extra that you still have on your spatula, just scrape back into your container. Try and clean up around your edges so you don't get your top piece welded to your pot. And tighten your lid. And again, I would say just pop that into a bowl of water. But if you do happen to let it sit too long, then what you can do, and this is Melanie's top tip from the DT, is actually put it in a bowl with some washing powder, and that will actually clear out a lot of your texture paste, gel mediums and things like that, without having to do too much scraping and Now I'm just going to run my spatula around the outside, like so, and around this side. Okay, so let's leave that to dry. And I'm going to peel my stamp back off now that it's dried a little, and put that back on my protective sheet. Now next I'm going to go for Unity of Light, and that's because I want the wings. So these are really cool. I'm just going to pop them on there. Now what I do want to get is a little bit of card, so it doesn't have to be super duper fancy card. It can be whatever you have to hand. I'm going to go for something a little thinner, so this is going to be 140 GSM, but it should make it a bit easier when I'm cutting out. And I'm going to go for black ink. I don't always when I'm going for mixed media stamping, but for this one, because we've got that black background, I think you can take it. Pop that on there. Okay, so next we're going to cut that out. So I'm going to do this quite quickly, but you can take your time if you want to get a bit more detailed. Now I'm just going to cut these wings out individually. How quick can your fussy cut? So, and I can go back and do the inner sections, like so. Now the biggest sections. Round we go. Okay, so I'm trying to remember to stay on camera, but it's a little bit tricky when you're also trying to see what you're doing. Okay, so with these inside bits, I'm just going to cut those off a little bit more. So if you want to see a project with the wings, I started to do a reef a while back where I cut these out, and you can actually stamp these out twice and actually have them so the wings open, which is really cool. So there's one. And I'm going to do the same again. So around here. Round them back down. I'm just going to take the big sections out of this one so you get the feel of the feathers. Like that. Okay, so neither. So this won't be quite dry just yet, but it won't be far off. So the idea is that our wings are going to go just here. And now we need a figure that we can put in the middle. So going back to the kind of shabby chic collection, there were these little cut apart figures and I was thinking that one of these would be fab. So I'm going to go for this lovely lady here. Now these are on mixed media paper, so if you want to watercolour them or colour tint them, you can do. And again, when you're doing this in your own craft room, you can take a little bit more time. There we go. Round that way. And we have our figure. So I'll save the other two for another day. So now with that done like that, we can start to go, actually, we need to bring in a little bit the colour from our background, but we're also going to introduce a new colour as well. So let's get my messy sheet. Morning, Sarah. And you'll love it, Joyce. It's such a really useful stamp to have, because if you need to knock back a colour, you can stamp it over the top, either in white or black depending, and it just makes it that little bit more subtle. So first of all, I'm going to start off with the green, and you might think, oh, how's that going to work? Well, this is actually going to be our shadow colour. So what I'm going to do is just grab my brush, a little bit of water, and you don't want a wet brush, you just want it slightly damp, and then we can pick up a little bit of that colour, the water, and we can start to watercolour with it. So given that this is just on thinner paper, we can be a bit lighter with our hand, so it's not getting too wet. But it will start to curl a little, that's fine, because you're going to want this to pop up anyway. So that green, we're going to concentrate on the inside of our wings, like so. Then as we start to move outwards, we can actually blend in some of that gold so that it starts to look like we have a bit more of a tinge. So let me just get that and just let you go a little bit darker just there. Okay. So now we're going to the gold whipped mousse, which is called Gilded. And this is definitely a lovely yellow gold, but it has quite a warm tone to it. So you can see there's little bits of pink in there too. So again, dampen your brush. And let's get some of that gold. And if it mixes some of that green too, I don't mind for this first little bit. And I'm just mushing that into the plastic, and we can go over the top. So we're starting to blend out those colours. Now I'm not taking this all the way to the edge yet, because we definitely want that to be the cleanest gold on that outside edge. So now I'm just going to pick up a bit more gold, put that in a clean spot on my mat, a little bit of water, and off we go again. Yeah, the mousses are really versatile and the colours are just fab. Okay. So you can always work back into these once they dry with a gel pen if you find they're just a little bit too dark for you. Let's get that top. And onto there. Okay. So while those are drying, let's move on to our figure. So I'm going to pick up some of that same gold and I'm just going to go over her skin very quickly. So it's going to give a real pale kind of covering without being too yellow. Remember, it's got those pink tones in it as well. Now we can start to go a little bit stronger. So I'm going to swap to the Pretty Amazing paint, and I'm going Heatwave, which is this lovely, well, I say red because it looks red when you put it on your surface, but you get so many colours to this. And it's another one where if you add water it looks totally different again. So I'm just going to get a little bit on the mat and a little bit of water. And you can see when you add water it starts to get like a purpley tinge to it, which is really unusual. Now you can always add more texture after by going back over with your mousses neat, but you will lose some of your detail or even your Pretty Amazing paints. So just be aware that you can lose some of the detail underneath if you go too thick. So I'm just going around the collar on a dress. There we go. I'm going to pop the top back on my water for a moment, and let's grab a cloth. Now because we don't want to accidentally put my arm in it, I will clean off my mat, but of course you'll be able to use up that paint before those dry for a moment and then come back with a white pen so that we can finish that off. So with our wing stamp, we can just clean that as we normally would our stamps. And put that back on your protective sheet. So that one was the Unity of Flight. There's a few different wing designs that you can get. And we'll pop that back away. So, with those two now on their way to drying, I'm just going to quickly have a look through my other stamps and just see if there's any other texture bits I just want to pop up. Right, let's go for this one. So this is Word Up. And it's a good one just to add a little texture. And let's go for white ink, so this is going to be a bit more subtle. And I'm just inking up part of the stamp. I don't want the whole thing, it's just literally that kind of bubble wrap section just there I'm interested in. And I'm going to go over this way. And it is really subtle, so we're getting kind of a softer feel. Now let's start building up these elements here. So I'm just going to go and use some wet glue for this. I've got some gel medium, but for something like this where it's thinner, I don't really need it. And I'm just going to glue just on the inside edge of that wing and let the rest of it fall where it may. I'm just going to press and hold it there for a moment, and then we can do the other one. So same again. I'm just going to press and hold. So, oh, that one's moved. Now we can place our figure in the middle. And I want the wings to look like they're coming roughly from by her shoulders. Now I have pulled out a load of other goodies that I thought we might use just in case. I'm looking at that and I'm thinking it'd be really nice to put a little bit of ribbon just around this top section. So I've tried to match the colour of my ribbon to the colour of my Pretty Whip mousse. And I'm just going to cut a short length. Now the plan is with something like this we would back the actual MDF with some adhesive velvet or something like that so that it has a nice soft backing to it. So I'll be able to hide all this mess that we have on the back. So let's get that there. Now I'm going to pop a little bit of glue just there, wrap that up and over, a little bit more glue, wrap this bit up and over. Hopefully you can see that okay. I'm just going to hold that there for a moment while it sets, because being shiny always takes a little longer. Come on. So any questions while I'm waiting for that to set, because it's being stubborn today. It's all gone quiet. It's just not liking the MDF. It'd rather stick to me than stick to itself today. Okay. Desperate times and all that. While that is setting, just so I can carry on. Just going to take a piece of tape, seal that up, and hold that down there, just to hold it out my way, and I can fix that later. Because the adhesive from the Bauble would go straight over the top anyway. So, okay, with that there, I have some other little goodies I've pulled out that I've tried to match the colours with. So, going for that kind of vintage red look, I have some little light bulbs, as you do. And I've also pulled out a few flowers and some twizzly bits. So let's get some twizzly bits, and I'm going to go for some red flowers. You may just get away with the green one as well, actually. Let's try that. So, I'm just going to quickly bend the stems. So if you have some wire stems, what I would usually do is kind of coil them round, and then you can use that to kind of latch your flowers onto your surface in your hot glue. So again, just coil it around like so. And I'm going to stop my glue gun preheating. So with your twiddly bits, I usually just grab a handful and I give it a little twist in the middle. And that's just so that I have something that's a bit denser that I can use into the hot glue. Come on, glue gun. There we go. I didn't even know if it was going to take that long. So I'm going to work into, excuse me, into this area here. I'm just going to pop a little bit on to start with. Now I'm going to use that twist. Try not to put your fingers straight in the glue, else you'll go out. You could also at this point include an extra bit of ribbon if you want to do like an extra bow. So I would do something like could go and pop that on there if you wanted to. But I'm just going to go with these flowers, I think. So a little bit of that green. So I'm going off to one side rather than going smack in the middle. And again, I'm going to aim for that wire to go straight to that hot glue. And I just hold it there for a few minutes while it sets. And I think the red, I'm going to go about there. Like so. Again, wire into that glue. And just hold it there for a moment. So with something like this, I think something down here would be good. So let's go just there. Aim for the wire. Now we have our little lights, so we could go pop that under there, so it looks kind of like we're mimicking a leaf too. It would be quite cool. If any of the bits of the strandy stuff gets in the way, just snip it away. I'm just going to put that around the top of my light bulb. If we rotate it round, and pop that in, and like so. Going to do the same again. And put that one just there. And if you want to include some of the green ones, you can do. Or decisions, we can go gold or pom-poms. So I have got these red pom-poms, but I think they might be too red, so let's have a look. So it's actually a pom-pom trim, but I think it's going to probably just be the wrong shade of red. So let's have a look at the green and check that too, see if that's going to be the wrong shade of green. It looks a little bit more in keeping than the pom-poms. And we can do the same over here where we've actually that's going to go under there. And we can actually put this next one kind of starting to dangle down if you want to. Now you can make your own sentiment stickers with your stamps, or if you have one already pre-made you can use that. And I think that for today I might just leave it at that. I was going to include some frogs as well, but I think I don't want to go too far with it. You can go a bit too mad sometimes. So I think I'm going to leave it there. So I hope you've enjoyed that and thought about some new ways that you can use your paints and your mousses to actually watercolour and photo tint. And I will pop a photo up on the group and the page as well. So there you go. Ta-da! Try to capture the light bit. There we go. So hopefully you can see that lovely metallic shimmer. And I think with that, I was going to do some patina, but I think that might be a touch too far, so I'm going to leave it. Must not fiddle. Finally learning less is more. So, take care for now, and I will see you next month. Have fun, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Take care.